It takes a lot of strength to get over your pride and choose to go to therapy. Now, please, you can start whenever you're ready.
Okay. Hello? I'm Nathan. Where do I even begin?
Well, first off, why don't you tell me a bit about yourself?
Okay, well, I'm Nathan.
Yes, you've mentioned that.
Oh, yeah, of course. Sorry about that. I have a bad habit of repeating myself and rambling when I get nervous.
Well, I can see where you get it from.
Yeah, there's no way this isn't him.
Other than your name, Nathan, what else can you tell me about yourself? How about we start with your childhood?
Well, I was born and raised in Bangor.
Bangor? Interesting name. Where is that?
It's in Maine, a long ways away from here. Early on, I had basically your typical childhood. I had the hard-working father, the stay-at-home mother. I was even a Boy Scout.
Go on.
And then some stuff happened, and I had to move in with my aunt and uncle. And I was in a pretty dark place for quite a while.
Would you like to expand on that?
I've never really talked about this with anyone before.
This is only our first session. If you're uncomfortable in any way, you don't have to continue.
No, it's okay. I am okay. Like I mentioned earlier, my dad was an extremely hard worker. On any given day, he would work anywhere from 10 to 15 hours. Immediately before what happened, he began working nights as well. I was fairly young, but I remember thinking how strange it was that he was working so many hours. We weren't rich by any means, but we also weren't necessarily hurting for money. It was a chilly Saturday morning in October. I was sitting at the counter with my mom, having a bowl of cereal for breakfast. I can't remember exactly what kind it was, but I'm sure it was jam-packed full of sugar. My mom was having a cup of coffee and a bagel, I believe. At that point, with Dad's new work schedule, he would have been there for about 4 hours already. Or so we thought. I was slurping up the leftover milk in my bowl when I heard the front door behind me. My dad nervously walked in with his hand in his jacket pockets. It's happening.
What is happening?
That's what he kept saying to me and my mom, over and over. It's happening. It's happening. I remember looking over to my mom, and she just had this somber look on her face. Like she was about to cry at any second, but she just wouldn't allow herself to. She grabbed me by the hand and just said to me, "It's okay, Nate. Everything is fine." And during the short conversation with my mom, I must not have even noticed my dad taking his hands out of his pockets. lifted a small gun with his right hand and shot Mom in the back of the head. With what she was saying to me, it seemed like she was expecting this to happen. She knew this was going to happen. She knew Dad was... It was so loud. After my ears stopped ringing and the shock wore off, I could make out what my dad was saying now. It was just a single word. Don't. I got out of my chair and ran to the front door. He never closed it behind him when he came inside, so I just bolted out and I ran. I kept running and running as fast as I could. I had no idea if he was even following behind me, and then I heard the second gunshot. I instinctively dropped to the ground. I didn't know if the gun was aimed towards me. It wasn't. I stayed on the ground for what felt like an hour, expecting to hear another shot at any second. But another never came. I slowly got up onto my feet and brushed myself off and began to make my way back home. I didn't know where else to go. I walked through the front door and everything just seemed so quiet, so peaceful. I made my way over to the kitchen and
Please, continue if you feel you can.
I found them on the floor. My dad was laying there next to my mom with a gunshot wound to the forehead and a few fresh bleeding gashes on his forearm. There appeared to be a hastily carved small triangle in his flesh. I almost didn't even notice the bloody knife over by the sink. In the span of what felt like 5 minutes, I went from having a calm, peaceful morning with my mom to essentially being an orphan.
Damn. Is all that true?
No. I mean, I don't know. As far as I know, my grandparents on my dad's side died in a house fire when he was just a kid.
Maybe he was just protecting you from the truth. Murder-suicide in the family is a lot for someone to take in.
I mean, I guess, but if he's willing to lie about something like this, what else would he lie about?
Look, I'm sure he had his reasons.
And another thing. That triangle he found carved in his dad's forearm, that isn't the first time that triangles have been mentioned.
It's a pretty common shape.
No, there has to be a connection. It was mentioned here. It was mentioned in that Egypt letter that Greg wrote, remember? He said that the poster on that notice board had a triangular marking on it. And we know exactly what that poster led him to. A lifetime in a mental ward, being held captive by whoever the fuck these people are. Their logo seems to be the triangle. Wait. Is that even a thing?
Is what a thing?
Do cults have logos? You're a cop. You should know this.
Believe it or not, that question wasn't on the entrance exam.
Weird. Wait a second. Something just flashed in my head. Triangles. Over in Jim's basement.
When you and Steve, was it? When you and Steve were breaking and entering? Again, you really shouldn't be telling me this stuff.
There was this door in his basement. It led to this strange hallway. I remember there were triangles scratched into all the walls. They were all different shapes and sizes. I remember walking through the door at the end of the hall, and then I was just back in my own basement somehow.
So there's a tunnel from Jim's house to yours.
There isn't, but there was at one time, apparently.
What do you mean?
There was a tunnel right at that moment, but when I was back in my own basement, the tunnel was just gone. Yeah, I know, it doesn't make sense. What a surprise. And then I think I went outside in the rain, and then the next thing I remember, I woke up in my bed soaking wet, and my memory of Steve was just completely gone from my head. I can't believe I completely forgot about that hall.
Yeah, that seems to be a pattern.
Yeah. I think it's getting better, though. I've been remembering more and more lately.
That's great, Nate. Really.
Thanks. Wait a second. I was too rattled by Jim's wife being back. I don't think I ever asked about that hall in the basement. He claimed that he didn't know shit about them, but I didn't ask about that fucking hall. He was lying. He's clearly connected to them. He's clearly part of this triangle cult.
Yeah, it seems pretty clear.
We need to get into that basement. There has to be more information down there.
Are you... Don't tell me you're suggesting that you and me break into your neighbor's house. I'm a cop.
No, well, we could at least confront him. Maybe ask nicely if we can see the basement. I'm sure that'll work. If he says no, I'm sure you can pull some cop strings and force him to let us in.
That's not really a thing I can do, Nate. But I guess we can go talk to him. But let's finish this tape first.
Yeah. Good idea. It's getting late. Let's keep listening.
Obviously really fucked me up, seeing them like that. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to swear, it just kind of slipped out.
That's okay. It sounds like a very difficult thing to experience. You can communicate that any way you wish.
Yeah. Thank you. I grabbed the house phone and was about to call the police, but they were already at my door. Neighbors must have heard the gunshots and called them. Within 30 minutes, my aunt and uncle arrived to pick me up. The weird thing is, they didn't even really acknowledge what happened. They just told me, you're going to be staying with us now. I tried to talk about it, tried to tell them what happened, but I just couldn't. The words wouldn't come out.
That's relatable.
I think it was shock.
That's understandable. After a traumatic event, it's normal to not want to talk about it. Sometimes things can be extremely difficult to talk about, especially so quickly after they occur. Well, it appears our time is up, but this was a great start. You should be very proud of what you did here today. It was a very important first step towards your recovery. We'll continue this next week.